Welcome back to the Renaissance Humanism podcast. In today's episode, I'll be discussing the topic of feminism, globalization, and the Silicon Age. As we are discussing today, international trade, globalization were born out of the aftermath of World War II. This is from 1939 to 1945, or if you are Russian or from the United States of America, from 1941 to 1945. Or if you are Chinese, that's most likely from 1933 with the invasion of Manchuria until the ending of World War II in 1945. But for them, there was internal war as well. So you're talking nearly 2 decades of constant warfare for the Chinese. What created globalization and the specialization that has enabled technological marvels such as the iPhone invented in 2007 and man landed on the moon in 1969 were possible thanks to the American security. The USA protects the world's global shipping lanes, ensuring that all nations have the capacity to buy and sell goods and services around the globe. This is the ultimate dream that has been envisioned by the philosopher, economist Adam Smith, who published his book, The Wealth of Nations, back in 1776. The reason why that's so important because the Industrial Revolution began in 1769 and its birthplace was in Britain. What this meant was that if a nation don't have access to coal and steel before globalization, it will not be able to industrialize. What globalization did was to be able to put peoples and places in a global marketplace. So each nation could specialize in goods and services. For China, it was cheap manufacturing goods. For Germany, it was high tech, highly advanced manufacturing goods, but more on the manufacturing side, not necessarily the tech side. And for the United Kingdom, it specialised in finance due to the global home of finance and global banking due to the British Empire and the Pax Britannica. This is where Britain was the most powerful nation inside the world global political system from 1815 to 1914, so just around a century. The reason why globalization methods of feminism is because the sexual revolution and the jobs that were created due to sexual evolution, due to globalization specifically, and trade, was that it moved jobs away from brawn power, working in manufacturing jobs that required much labor, into doing jobs that were more mentally orientated, less physical, and that enabled women to do more jobs and more opportunities inside the workplace. The feminist author Betty Friedan, she's the author of The Feminine Mystique, and this year's the 50th anniversary since it was first published in 1963. She was able to be a journalist and writer and author, having been educated in the 1930s and 1940s. This was possible because she had support of her husband that went against the normal social norms of that time period. It was through the support of her husband that she could actually become a writer, become an author, become a journalist. Her husband was not very typical for that time period. That enabled her to have that freedom. But women today, they're now encouraged. There's also necessary social norms that women can go out into the workplace and be high effective business people as well. That's a very good thing as well for women. Though there's a very different outlet between the career jobs working as a cleaner, that's not a career jobs, but there's a culture out there that working those kinds of jobs are careers and not. There's a massive difference between being a careerist, having a career, and having a job. Having a job, you're very much serving somebody else's dream. You're living towards their ambitions and fulfilling their goals. Feminism didn't fight for women to be cleaners. They fought for women so they could be lawyers, judges, and higher class jobs. That's the big divide between the working class feminists. They want women to be safe in the workplace, want women to have working toilets as well, compared to the high class feminists who are trying to be doctors and hiring professionals. That's a massive difference between the two, because for a certain class of women, being at home probably preferable than working in a factory day in, day out, or being a cleaner getting bad knees, or being a nurse or being a carer having to wipe somebody's shit. They might have been better off just wiping the shit off their own children and doing those kind of chores at home rather than what I'm saying is they would have been better off, some of them, cleaning their own toilets, not cleaning somebody else's toilets, some money. And I think that's what women, in some respects, have got a raw deal. They got the short end of the stick. Now, we're going to talk about now independency and new tech. In contrast, a young woman working in cities doing, again, financial jobs will need independence from her family and responsibilities to entitle her on the ability so she can pursue her own career ambitions. There's a massive divide between what a career is and what a job is. A career fulfillment can be found in a job. You are a servant to another person's dream. This is the case of luxury beliefs. This is where an elite group of people put forward economic and social policies that suits their upper class interests, negatively affects people working working classes. If you are a man or a woman living in a city, I invite you to go into a dating app using the dating app as a man. And if you target between 18 and 25 years old, you'll notice if you're at a university city as well, well, there's university, if you open it outside of the university, the levels of working class mothers goes higher and higher and higher. But in the university itself, there's not a lot of mothers there in the same age group. This is because there's one set of lifestyles that works for women in middle and higher classes, and one that works for working class women. And you also find that inside upper class settings, that those women tend to be married and working class women don't. That shows that one class, it says one thing about liberalism, you don't need no man, I'm going to be a boss babe, whatever. And then you've got working class women who see these other women, like celebrities, for example, Beyonce. That's a bit of an extreme example. Beyonce, she sings the song All the Single Ladies, but she's married. It seems a lot of these celebrities tend to be married. And that's something that people living in the culture, particularly working class people, they see that vision of behaviour. I think it's not something to aspire to, but the rich and the powerful, they're married. They're in what you call uh, interdependency relationships, and that is where both partners can operate independently of one another, but they work better as a whole. There's also the laptop classes as well. So see, for women that work in laptop classes, I'm a laptop class worker myself. They work 7 hours a day, but that kind of labour, it's very mentally orientated. It's very thought driven, and the value is added through the work that's being created. For example, you're listening to now on a podcast on a YouTube channel. This takes about anything between 30 minutes to at worst 3 hours to write to do an accurate script, and then I've got to record it. It could be 10, 20, 15 minutes, so it's simple in that kind of respect as well. So that's like the kind of laptop class jobs. They're very cushy, but they can be very mentally and emotionally demanding. And those jobs, due to new technologies, became available to women, and it's very much a benefit to women. But what I'm trying to say is there's a massive difference between the rhetoric of the working upper classes within the United Kingdom and within the United States. A great example of this is the dating app Tinder. Tinder, it was the way it was created by people at American universities, and it was aimed at the top 20% of people at universities, top 20% of people working higher incomes. That's why those people, they could get together, they could have sex, they could have relationships, or they could just have hookups. But these are people from similar kind of backgrounds, similar kind of education. After they've had their fun at university, they will necessarily get married. But that's the Tinder. It was never designed for people not in the 20%. It was designed for the successful people actually can understand and handle that technology, social media, and also the iPhone as well. I believe it should be treated like drugs or treated like smoking or alcohol. Should wait until the age of 21 or 16, depending which country you're living in. And because of that, it's destroying young people's lives as well. I mean, the person who actually created the iPhone, Steve Jobs, and his Apple company, he doesn't let his own children play with them. So you've got people in tech that don't let their own kids play with that kind of technology. That tells you everything that you need to know about it actually not being safe. I hope you've all today enjoyed today's podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for listening. And peace out.